So the movie follows Gru, a supervillain whose latest plan is to steal the moon. To pull it off, he adopts 3 orphan girls because they can help him get access to a device he needs for the heist. The problem is, Gru slowly starts becoming attached to them and finds himself having to choose between being the world's greatest villain and being a father. This movie was such a pleasant surprise when it first came out. Gru is a fantastic character, the girls are incredibly likable, and the movie balances comedy and heart really well. The Minions hadn't completely taken over the franchise yet, so they were actually used in moderation and worked much better because of it. What really makes the movie stand out, though, is Gru's character development. Watching him slowly go from this selfish villain to somebody who genuinely cares about these kids is done really well. It's funny, heartwarming, and still one of Illumination's best movies.
That is one big pile of shit.
The story follows E.B., the Easter Bunny's son, who has absolutely no interest in taking over the family business. Instead, he runs away to Hollywood to chase his dream of becoming a drummer. Along the way, he ends up crossing paths with a directionless slacker who somehow gets dragged into all the chaos. I don't know, man. This movie just never really clicked with me. The premise is strange, the humor is pretty hit or miss, and the live action mixed with animation doesn't work nearly as well as it should. Russell Brand gives E.B. plenty of personality, but the movie itself just isn't very interesting. It's not offensively bad or anything, just kind of forgettable. Every time I watch it, I end up feeling like there was a much better movie hidden somewhere in this concept.
I mean, it's alright, like...
The movie follows Ted, a young boy living in a city where almost everything is artificial. Wanting to impress Audrey, he goes on a journey to find a real tree and learns the story of the Onceler and how greed eventually destroyed the natural world around him. I think this movie is alright. It definitely has a good message and some genuinely funny moments. The animation is colorful and energetic, and Danny DeVito was a perfect choice for the Lorax. My biggest problem is that some of the extra storylines don't really add much, and the movie can feel a little too over the top at times. Still, it's entertaining enough, and I can definitely see why younger audiences enjoy it.
I like this one.
After leaving his villain days behind him, Gru is recruited by the Anti-Villain League to help investigate a mysterious new supervillain. Teaming up with Lucy Wilde, the two travel around, trying to uncover who's behind a dangerous new threat. This is a fun sequel. I don't think it reaches the emotional highs of the first movie, but it's still a very enjoyable watch. Steve Carell and Kristen Wiig have great chemistry together, and Lucy ended up being a really fun addition to the franchise. The Minions definitely get a bigger role this time around, which works for the most part, although you can already see Illumination starting to rely on them more heavily. Overall, it's a good sequel, just not quite as strong as the original.
Hey, that's pretty good.
The movie takes us back to the origins of the Minions and shows us their long search for the perfect villain to serve. Eventually, Kevin, Stuart, and Bob find themselves working for Scarlet Overkill, a villain who dreams of becoming Queen of England. The thing about this movie is that your enjoyment really depends on how much you like the Minions. They're funny in small doses, but making them the main focus for an entire movie was always going to be a challenge. There are definitely some entertaining moments, and I actually think Scarlet Overkill is a pretty fun villain, but the story itself is pretty thin. It's enjoyable enough for what it is, but it's not something I find myself wanting to revisit very often. So the movie follows Max, a spoiled little dog whose perfect life gets turned upside down when his owner brings home another dog named Duke. The two immediately clash with each other and end up getting lost in New York City while trying to find their way back home. Along the way, they run into a bunch of other animals and even a group of abandoned pets, led by a bunny named Snowball. I'm gonna be honest, this movie has one of those concepts that sounds way more interesting than the actual movie. The idea of seeing what pets do when their owners leave for work is great, but the film never really does enough with it. Instead, it turns into a pretty generic adventure story. There are a few funny moments, and Kevin Hart brings a lot of energy as Snowball, but outside of that, I found it pretty forgettable. It's not terrible, but it's definitely one of Illumination's weaker movies for me.
Woo! Yeah, baby!
The movie follows Buster Moon, a struggling theater owner who's desperately trying to save his theater from going out of business. To do that, he launches a huge singing competition, which attracts a colorful group of contestants, all dealing with their own personal struggles and dreams. I actually really enjoyed this one. The movie has a lot more heart than I expected going into it, and the characters are surprisingly easy to get invested in. Each contestant has their own story going on, and some of them are genuinely touching. The music is obviously a huge part of the experience, and for the most part, it works really well. It's funny, entertaining, and one of those movies that's just easy to sit back and enjoy. Definitely one of Illumination's better efforts.
Not bad.
Not bad, but not good.
Yeah.
This time around, Gru discovers that he has a long-lost twin brother named Drew. While Gru is trying to balance family life, Drew wants him to return to his villain roots and help take down a former child star turned supervillain named Balthazar Brat. This is where the franchise started losing me a little. Balthazar Brat is honestly one of the better parts of the movie, and I thought the whole 1980s theme surrounding him was pretty funny. The problem is, everything else feels like it's trying to juggle too many different storylines at once. Gru, Lucy, Drew, the girls, the minions, it all starts feeling a bit cluttered. It's not bad, but it's definitely a step down from the first two movies. The story follows the Grinch, a grumpy loner who absolutely hates Christmas, and decides he's going to steal the holiday from the people of Whoville. But as Christmas gets closer, he begins to realize there's more to the holiday than he originally thought. I think this movie is fine. Benedict Cumberbatch does a decent job as the Grinch, and the animation looks great throughout. My biggest issue is that it feels a little too safe compared to previous versions of the story. The Grinch never really feels as mean or bitter as he should, and because of that, some of the emotional payoff doesn't hit as hard. It's still an enjoyable family movie, just not one of my favorite adaptations of the character.
Failure! Failure! You're still a failure! Failure! I can smell the failure!
After the events of the first movie, Max is now dealing with some anxiety issues after his owner starts a family. At the same time, we follow several different side stories involving Snowball, Gidget, and the rest of the gang, as they all go on their own little adventures. This movie was rough for me. One of the biggest problems is that it doesn't even feel like one complete story. It feels more like 3 or 4 separate plots, awkwardly stitched together into a single movie. The first movie already didn't do much for me, and somehow I found this one even less interesting. There are a couple of funny moments scattered throughout, but overall I was just bored. Definitely one of Illumination's weakest movies.
It's pretty cool, I guess.
So after finally saving his theater, Buster Moon decides he wants to take things to the next level and put on a huge show in the entertainment capital of the world. The problem is that he lies his way into getting the opportunity and promises that he'll bring a legendary rock star out of retirement, despite having absolutely no way of actually doing it. I know a lot of people really like this movie, but it just didn't work for me as much as the first one. The biggest problem is that it feels like it spends more time trying to be bigger than it does trying to tell a better story. The first movie had a lot more heart, and I found the characters much easier to connect with. There are still some good musical performances, and the animation is impressive, but overall, it just felt average to me. Not bad, but not great.
So good.
The movie takes us back to the 1970s and follows a young Gru who dreams of becoming the world's greatest supervillain. When an opportunity arises to join a famous group of villains known as the Vicious Six, Gru jumps at the chance. Unfortunately, things don't exactly go according to plan, and he quickly finds himself in way over his head. This was actually a lot more fun than I expected it to be. I think focusing on Gru again was exactly what the franchise needed, because he's always been the most interesting character. The movie has a good sense of humor, some fun action sequences, and the 1970s setting gives it a unique personality. It's still not on the same level as the original Despicable Me, but it's one of the stronger entries in the franchise. The story follows Mario and Luigi, two brothers from Brooklyn who accidentally get transported into a strange new world filled with mushroom kingdoms, giant turtles, and all kinds of familiar faces from the games. When Luigi is captured by Bowser, Mario teams up with Princess Peach and others to try and stop Bowser's plans and save his brother. As a Mario fan, I had a good time with this one. The movie is packed with references and Easter eggs, and you can tell the people making it genuinely love the games. The animation looks fantastic, and Jack Black absolutely steals the show as Bowser. My main criticism is that the story is pretty basic, and the movie moves so fast that some characters don't get much development. Still, it's a fun adventure and a good first step for Mario on the big screen.
Disappointed!
The movie follows a family of ducks who decide to leave the safety of their pond and go on a migration journey across the world. Along the way, they encounter new animals, dangerous situations, and plenty of unexpected challenges as they travel far beyond anything they've ever experienced before. This is another Illumination movie that I found pretty forgettable. There's nothing offensively bad about it, but there's also nothing that really stands out either. The characters are fine, the animation is nice, and the story does its job, but I never found myself particularly invested in what was happening. It's one of those movies where I finished watching it and immediately moved on with my day. This time, Gru and his family find themselves being targeted by a new villain, forcing them to go into hiding and start a new life under different identities. Of course, things quickly become complicated as old enemies, new threats, and family problems all start piling up at once. I'm not gonna lie, this movie felt like the franchise had completely run out of ideas. The first movie had heart, the second movie was fun, and by this point, it feels like they're just going through the motions. The story isn't very interesting, the jokes don't land nearly as often as they used to, and most of the new characters add very little to the experience. There are a few decent moments here and there, but overall I found it pretty disappointing. Easily one of the weakest films in the franchise.
That's what I'm talking about. This shit means something to me, man.
After the events of the first movie, Mario and his friends find themselves facing a much larger adventure that takes them beyond the Mushroom Kingdom and into the depths of space itself. New worlds, new allies, and new threats await as the stakes become much bigger than anything they've faced before. This is a solid sequel that takes what worked in the first movie and builds on it. The scope is bigger, the action is better, and there are a few emotional moments that hit harder than I expected. The animation looks great, and some of the locations genuinely feel like they were pulled straight out of the games. It also feels like the movie has more confidence in itself this time around compared to the first one. My only issue is that with everything going bigger, it occasionally loses a bit of the charm that made the first movie work so well, and a couple of the new characters don't get quite enough room to breathe. Still, it's a fun, well-made sequel, and one of the better Illumination movies out there. So this one takes us back to 1920, before the events of the very first Minions movie, and follows the little guys as they try to break into Hollywood and make a monster movie of their own. Of course, things spiral way out of control, and they end up accidentally unleashing actual monsters onto the world, which means they've got to band together to try and clean up the mess they created. I had a genuinely fun time with this one. Setting it in old Hollywood gives it a personality that the other Minions movies didn't really have, and there's something charming about watching them stumble their way through making a movie while causing complete chaos around them. The humor lands more often than not, and the monster stuff gives it a fun visual variety that the franchise needed. It's still a Minions movie at the end of the day, so don't go in expecting anything super deep, but as far as these prequels go, this might be the strongest one yet. My only real complaint is that some of the new characters don't get a whole lot to do once the chaos kicks in, but that's kind of expected at this point with these movies. Still, a solid, fun watch. Well, there you have it, guys, my list of every Illumination Studios movie ranked. Which one's been your favorite Illumination movie so far? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe.